All right, welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, it is Morning Delight. Yes, we're done with open access, but with time to talk. This is a segment where we have conversations around national issues, especially the ones that have been brought to the fore, the national agenda. Today isn't any exception. As you'll see very soon, our topic for today is the history of the black race. We might not be able to go into all of the history, but we can see what we can do as the need to appreciate and guard jealously our collective cultural value in all its ramifications is so important even now than ever before, what with all the cultural issues in some parts of the world, Nigeria inclusive. And right now our focus on Talk Time on Morning Delight is to see how we can reawaken our consciousness as to how we can further guard it, our social, our cultural and heritage, especially as we move on in this ever-changing and constantly evolving world. I'm not alone to do this conversation. I've got someone who's capable in this area of the black man and all of our cultural values and all of the things we're beginning to grapple with as a people. He is Mr. Tokunbo Fernandez. He has a long name. I don't know. These were the three I was able to remember. He is an author. He is a poet, and he's also an ambassador for peace for the Universal Peace Federation. You're welcome to the show, Mr. Fernandez.
It's a pleasure. It's a profound pleasure to be on the show for the first time. And it brings back memories because when I was growing up as a child, I used to listen to LTV. So this morning is now I'm here. So it feels like a very historical morning, but also a very emotional morning in a very positive way.
I appreciate that, and we're also glad to have you back home and in the house. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There is something I read in the book I was given by the producer, and I'd like to start off our conversation with that. And it is, sometimes a split second is all it takes for great moments to unfold. It hit me when I read that, and so I'm going to use that to start the conversation with you. Take me through the moments that hit you as well, and what happened, and where have you gone with this particular statement you made right here?
Those split moments in life are very, very, very powerful, magical moments, and sometimes they're the decisive moments that will bring us from our comfort seats into new territories. And in reference to that statement, it goes back to 7 years ago when the whole journey of organizing Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament began. I was working at the radio station at the time. I was a radio producer and radio presenter for an African radio show in Reading in England. And I had a very, very large following. And after a while, the radio station got closed down. And I said to myself, okay, what next? How am I going to promote the African contents in the diaspora and project it? And I spoke to my MP at the time, the MP for Reading, who is currently the UK Minister of Employment. So I saw him at that event talking. And I walked up to him because he made a statement. He said, look, if there's anything in the community people need to do, please approach me. I'm approachable. And after that talk, he walked out and nobody followed him. So I chased after him. I had nothing in mind. And I said, sir, I would like to have a meeting with you. And then we arranged a meeting, a few days later. And I said, look, I would like to organize Black History at UK House of Parliament. I have the following. I've built a radio ship. I want to continue the journey of what it means to promote African history in the biggest building in England. And he said, Tony, give me a few days to think about it. And a few days later, he emailed me and said, okay, let's see what you can do. And That's how it all began. 2013, I organized the first Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament on a zero budget, but with the limited resources of people who supported my journey with video footage, photographs, and catering. And ever since then, every single year, it's grown bigger with no funding. Last year, we had even speakers come from Nigeria, Ghana. We had a politician come from Nigeria as well. And so it's a way, for me, it's not just a way of promoting our history to the outside world. It's also a way of bringing people together from different social and cultural backgrounds so that they can understand our story. And I'm not just talking about Nigeria, which has over 20, but I'm talking about people from all different backgrounds within Africa and the rest of the world.
It has black population. Black
populations. So the split second also refers to Nigeria as well for so many reasons, because this is a very, very, very beautiful country with so much hope and potential, with a big youth population. But that split second is also about people taking the bull by the horn and not waiting for anyone to make this nation a better place, not waiting for politicians, not waiting for big men or guy. No. And this is where we have to engage the mindsets to change the way they think and embrace the essence that you and I are not the future, but the present.
Thank you. Right. We will get to that just in a bit as to how we can begin to use our culture to solve a lot of the social issues that we have in Nigeria. But first, I can see the countries listed here that you've been to, about 28, 29 mentioned here. That's without England, without Nigeria, and some parts of the world. You're a well-traveled man. You've mixed with a lot of Africans, a lot of black people.
Yes.
As you move along in all of these countries you've been to. What is a common factor that you'd say at the end of the day, if only we can imbibe this, Africa will be better for it?
We need a central voice. We have talents, we have brains, we have potential, but even within African continents, sometimes we need a central voice to engage amongst ourselves and do things together. Because once we have a central voice, we become a more powerful unit. And even in the countries I visited in Europe, engaging with African communities, you find people doing very, very beautiful things. But there's also a broken link. So people within a country don't know what's happening within the other region. So that central voice is very, very essential. Another thing I think we need is 7 years ago also I set up a blog, international blog, purely to promote African content worldwide, because I was very, very frustrated of mainstream telling the African story and getting it wrong. And so I went on that journey 7 years ago, and till this day now, the blog has grown to build more audiences in African communities in Europe, and to build more audiences in Nigeria as well, because our history is also about our stories and our content. And so what we're projecting out to the world is very, very important. You know, how positive it is. How does it reflect our values and everything? Even with the music industry we have in Nigeria itself, what does it say about us? What image are we selling to the world? And the film industry is a very good example too, because even though Nollywood is now the second biggest film industry in the world, we can still do better by that, by reflecting images and stories of empires that existed even before the slave trade. I mean, even the white producers make millions of money to sell these kind of stories, and they don't have that rich history. So it's a tough one.
It is tough.
Yeah, and the journey continues.
The journey continues, you say. But how much progress have we made? Coming back home now to Nigeria, if you have to look at cultural values over the years, how much progress have there been, even as the world evolves around us and we need to grapple with all the things going on and try to merge it with what we have culturally in our country, Nigeria? I tell you what, I was having a conversation with someone and he said to me, it seemed to him like when we asked for independence from the British colonial masters, we were also asking for independence from our own culture. Over the years, that's what has happened. Do you agree? What do you think has gone wrong? Where is the disconnect from at this time as we speak?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to pinpoint the disconnect because I wouldn't want to stereotype the pockets which exist within our society. Yeah. In one of my recent trips back home here some years ago, I interviewed so many artists, both popular and upcoming, and I noticed that there was within the youth itself there's so much originality, resource and room to get further, but at the same time part of us have become westernized. So I think the disconnects, because even, I'm sorry to say, sometimes even our elders now have those Western values, so maybe the disconnect comes from us. Sometimes we just need to pause a while and ask ourselves who we really are. It's a very important question. People think it's just a simple question, but who we really are, and are we portraying who we really are
should
as
that be
Africans?
constant? Should that be what we do constantly? Because who we were yesterday might not be who we are today. How do we merge yesterday with today to at least get a better tomorrow?
That's a very, very tough one. That's a very tough one itself, because then again you have to, with a changing world also, it can be a bit tricky. But I still believe we can still adapt who we are and also know our calling of who we are as Africans to achieve anything we want to achieve.
Are generations able to impart the knowledge from generation to another any longer? Do you see that happening in Nigeria? Are we able to, all the cultural values that we grew up with as a people, are we able to give it back to the next generation? Because one would look at this, the youth population we have, and some would say they're probably lost. They probably do not understand the history and they don't know how to merge both their history and their present, and they're somewhat confused and do not know which way to go other than to go the Western world.
That thing of passing on our knowledge and history from elders to the young ones, in my opinion, is slowly losing its
You're losing it.
We're losing it slowly, and I think it's very, very important for the elders to always tell the children about their history, and not just the history, their stories, because knowing the stories is very, very important in impacting the lives of the young ones itself. And the frustration also comes now because we live in a country now where the majority of the population of the country are the youth. And what are their stories, what has been passed on to them, But they themselves also, I think, still have a stronger, I'll use the word stronger, role to play for the future, because they're the majority, and there's no such thing as saying that, things are not impossible in the chaotic state we find ourselves now. Great things can be achievable. I'd like to be in a situation where we can see moving forward, where the youth should form their own political party. They're the majority, and get people, goodwill people, to form that political party. Not in a situation where it's just before elections, no, but a 4-year tenure where they're going out, engaging with people, and like I said before, changing the mindsets
You think that's what we really need at this point?
I think we need to change our mindset at this point.
All right, so changing our mindset, what exactly is wrong, or what's wrong with our mindset, and where do we need to get it to?
Nothing is wrong with our mindset. I just feel that the self-esteem, we need to believe that we are the present, we are the future. And this is, I love this country, it's a beautiful country, but if there are things which are not working right now, we should be looking at ourselves and asking ourselves, what are we doing about the current situation to make it better? And how can we mobilize similar minds to make it better? There's no point saying, oh, things are so bad and everything, you can't fight the system. We are the system, we are the present, we are that future. And that split second element, it lies within each and every one of us. I mentor youth in Lagos, in Benin, in Calabar. I don't always get to see them face to face, but we have some video chats and all that. And I can see there's a lack of self-esteem as well sometimes, and also a kind of disconnect itself.
But do they even understand, or do they have a sense of belonging in the system to probably give them some level of self-esteem? Do they feel included? Do they feel like they matter?
A lot of the time, they feel as if they do not matter. But they also can create. They can create with what they have around them. They can create and make it happen with the resources they have around them.
So you're putting the responsibility right at their own doorstep, that they need to be the one to go all out.
Yes.
And seek ways and fight for what they want.
And take the bull by the horn.
They have to take the bull by the horn.
All good things in life are possible. Once we have the mental mindset, once we have the human resources, these are very, very, very talented youths, very, very hardworking youths as well. And so I think sometimes we've reached a stage where there's despair in many communities in Nigeria that, oh, things will not get better, oh, no. And even sometimes when people campaign for political posts, it becomes a subconscious notion to, say, oh, that person has no chance and all that, So sometimes I feel as if, subconsciously, our mindset is influenced by what's before us, and so we just accept it. And if we accept the current situation subconsciously, things are not going to change.
Things are not going to change if we accept the current situation subconsciously. But then, having gone around Nigeria, I'm sure you've also listened to the news very recently with all the crisis, both in the northeast that we've had for a while now, presently in the northwest with Zamfara, Taraba going on, Middle Belt, Benue. Just yesterday, we've had issues there. Spates of kidnappings along just around the country. How can we use our cultural values? How can we begin to use those things that our heritage? How can we begin to use them to start to solve our problems? Joblessness, for example. How do we begin to use them to solve a lot of these social issues that we have, in your opinion?
That's quite a tricky one, because we need a source of innovation to solve these kind of issues, but sometimes we need support. We also need the support of a lot of our entrepreneurs who can come up with businesses that will offer more opportunities for the youth. And also look within the country itself to solve those issues, and not also, let me talk about the economy itself. Rely on things like importing. We've got so much here, so much resources here in terms of just natural and food and everything else that we can tap into and maximize to make the nation flourish. but there's been so many factors out there to prevent such a situation happening itself. So it's a long way to go, and it's not a woman's job as well.
Isn't it ironic to you that as a people, we're very resilient? When it comes to very brave, very courageous, when we have issues, get to difficult situations, we find ways to find ourselves out of it. And a lot of us are doing wonderful work, even outside the country. You have all our professionals, doctors, engineers, and yet to come back home and then you see a country we still need to talk to the youth to get involved. We're still begging our leaders to at least look at the people. Isn't it ironic for you?
It's quite ironic, and it's emotionally sad sometimes. You also have instances of a lot of entrepreneurs and talented people in the diaspora and other countries around the world who've also come back to Nigeria, even doctors, and also to invest and do more, and sometimes they get frustrated. Yeah, and they go back, they go back by the system. But
is that the answer? Do they have to go back?
No, it's not the answer. They don't have to go back, but we also have to promote the happy stories as well, because there's so many happy stories in Nigeria.
We're not doing that enough.
We're not doing that enough, and that's why I set up my blog 7 years ago. It was simply because we're not promoting the happy stories. And the sad thing is that there are so many happy stories as well, but you don't get to really hear about the happy stories, not just with the current entrepreneurs and youth leaders we have today, but even with our history. I mean, how many people, even within Nigeria, would know that the richest man who ever existed on the face of the earth was an African? There are loads of. So yes, a lot of people do go back, but people stay behind, and there are many happy stories. And as long as we can project those happy stories, and the phrase I really like to use sometimes is, we need to be the change we want to see in society, and it goes for all of us itself. It's not enough for me because I live outside Nigeria, and I always feel that I have more of a duty to play. But the solution to getting things done will always lie within us.
Are we expecting you to come back home to get more involved than you already are?
Yes, I'll be getting more and more involved than I already are, and I'll also like to embrace other parts of the continent itself, and try and promote that happy story, that happy page, that those values which will also inject more energy into our youth who are frustrated. They need that.
We need that.
We need that.
Those values that will inject more energy into our youths. That is Mr. Tokunbo Fernandez passing shots. We need to continue to tell the good stories coming out of Nigeria, coming out of Africa, coming out of the black man. Those are the things we should focus on as we continue to seek ways to progress and to solve all of our issues. There's so many issues out there, but culturally, we also need to understand who we are at the moment. There seems to be some vacuum there. And I'm sure, as you have said, as soon as we're able to understand that and get on with it, there might be some progress, right?
Yes, and the progress is every day.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tony Fernandez, for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
Good to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
We do hope to see more of you in Nigeria with our youths and with some youth development as well.
You'll definitely be
That's a challenge.
That's a challenge which I will live up to.
All right then. Okay, there you have it. That's all we have for you on this week's edition, Friday edition, and also the whole of the week. Many thanks for joining us. All those who called, all those who sent SMS and WhatsApp messages, thank you so much for all your contributions and your suggestions. Of course, we will put them to heart. To the producer of the week, Bami Jele Adejiron, thank you so much for what you've done for Morning Delight this week. To all our cameramen, all our camera crew, all the people behind closed doors, Behind the scene, we have the audio MCR. Thank you so much for giving us all the wonderful pictures and making us look pretty. We do appreciate what you do. Thank you, everyone. We will see you again Monday, bright and early. Equally an interesting week with great topics coming your way as well, with also very cerebral discussions as well on our panel. I am Romelia Esangbejo. A lovely weekend I wish you, and please remember this is the last, we're entering the last week of the fasting of the Lenten period. Remember to put Nigeria in your prayers as we begin to celebrate the death of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next week. Programming continues on Lagos Television. Keep a date with our station as we promise to entertain you and inform and educate you as well. Bye for now. Thank you.